She looked like just another student sitting in an airplane seat. Nobody knew who she really was. But when the plane started to fail and everyone was going to die, she revealed her secret. She was a legendary fighter pilot with a famous call sign. She was the best pilot in the sky. And she was about to save everyone on board. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Sarah Mitchell looked like a normal college student sitting in seat 12C of Flight 847. She wore a simple blue hoodie, had her hair in a messy bun, and carried a backpack full of textbooks and notebooks. The other passengers on Flight 847 from Denver to Los Angeles did not give her a second look. Nobody knew that this quiet, shy girl was actually Captain Sarah Mitchell, call sign, Storm Rider, one of the best F-22 Raptor fighter pilots the United States Air Force had ever trained in the past 20 years. The morning was cold and gray at Denver International Airport. It was 7:30 a.m. on a Wednesday in March. The airport was very busy with travelers going to different places. Sarah stood in a long security line with hundreds of other travelers. She was going home to Los Angeles to visit her family for spring break. For the first time in 3 years, she had a whole week off from her duties at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. Her commander had ordered her to take time away from flying because she was very tired. She needed rest. Sarah had flown too many dangerous missions over the past few years in countries far away. When Sarah bought her ticket, she used her real name. She did not use a fake name or try to hide who she was. There was no reason to hide. Most people did not know about fighter pilots. Most people did not know their names or their call signs. To the world, Sarah was just another college student coming home for a vacation to relax and spend time with her family. At the gate, Sarah sat near the large window and watched the planes take off and land on the runways below. She loved watching planes more than anything. Even when she was a small child, she loved the sky. She would sit on the roof of her house for hours and watch clouds move across the sky. She would dream about flying high above the clouds. She would imagine what it felt like to touch the sky. Now, she was living that dream every single day. But right now, she just wanted to rest and sleep. She was very tired from flying so many combat missions over dangerous territories. She had not slept well in many months. Every night she had bad dreams about flying and fighting. At the gate near her seat, a man in a nice business suit sat down next to her on the hard airport chair. He was about 50 years old with gray hair. His name was David Chen and he worked as a manager for a big company in Los Angeles. He was reading a thick newspaper and did not notice Sarah at first. He was thinking about his business meeting that was waiting for him in California. He was thinking about money and deals. First time flying? David asked suddenly, looking at Sarah's young face and her student backpack. Sarah smiled politely and kindly. No, I fly often for work. I fly many times each month. Oh, what do you do? David asked with some interest in his voice. I work for the Air Force, Sarah said simply without giving too much information. David nodded but did not ask any more questions. He thought Sarah worked in an office at an air base. He thought she maybe worked in communications or administration doing paperwork. He did not imagine she was a pilot. She was too young looking. She was too small in size. She looked like she should be sitting in a classroom in college, not in the cockpit of a fighter jet. A young woman about the same age as Sarah sat down on the other side of her. Her name was Emma Rodriguez, and she was a flight attendant on different airlines. But in her free time, she was studying hard to become a pilot herself. She overheard Sarah talking about the Air Force working. Oh wow, you work for the military? Emma asked with great excitement in her voice. That's so cool. What do you do there? I fly aircraft, Sarah answered in a calm voice. Emma's eyes went very wide with surprise. You fly planes? That's amazing. Are you a cargo pilot? Or do you fly transport planes that carry supplies? I fly fighter jets, Sarah said quietly without making a big deal about it. David looked up from his newspaper and laughed a little bit. Fighter jets? Come on now. Women don't fly F-22 Raptors. Those are the most advanced planes in the world. Maybe you work in communications or administration. That's very important work too. Sarah's face did not show any emotion. She had heard this exact same thing many times before in her life. People always doubted her. I fly F-22 Raptors. I am a combat pilot. I have been flying combat missions for 12 years. Emma shook her head in disbelief and amazement. F-22 Raptors are the most advanced fighter jets in the world. They cost millions and millions of dollars each. You have to be one of the best and smartest pilots in the entire Air Force to fly those planes. How is that even possible? It is possible if you train hard and never give up on your dreams, Sarah said simply. She did not like to brag about herself or her accomplishments. She was a very humble person. She knew that many people had worked together to help her become a pilot. David smiled in a kind way, but Sarah could tell he did not believe her at all. He thought she was making up stories. That's great. I am sure you do important work for the military. Maybe you help prepare the planes or something like that. Maybe you work as a mechanic. Sarah turned to look out the window at the planes on the runway. She did not want to argue with him or waste energy. She had heard this many times before in her life. People did not believe that women could be fighter pilots. They thought it was impossible. But Sarah did not care what people thought anymore. She knew what she could do. She knew her own abilities. She had proven herself many times in very dangerous situations where lives depended on her skills. Emma was still very interested in talking to Sarah about flying. But seriously, you fly F-22s? That is incredible beyond belief. How many hours of flight time do you have? About 4,500 hours, Sarah said. Most of them are in the F-22 Raptor. Some are in training aircraft. 4,500 hours. Emma could not believe it. That is like flying every single day for years and years without stopping. That is more hours than a commercial pilot has. Yes, Sarah said. That is what it takes to become a good pilot. You have to practice and train and fly. You have to make mistakes and learn from them. You have to study hard and never stop learning. The gate agent announced that the airplane was ready for boarding. Flight 847 to Los Angeles, now boarding all passengers. Please have your boarding pass ready. Sarah, David, and Emma got on the plane together and walked down the long aisle to find their seats. Sarah sat in seat 12C, which was in the middle. David had managed to get seat 12A by the window where he could see outside. Emma was across the aisle in seat 12B. As the plane was filling up with more and more passengers, David started talking to Sarah again. So you fly for the Air Force. How long have you been doing that exactly? 12 years, Sarah said. She had joined the Air Force when she was 18 years old right after high school. She had gone to the Air Force Academy. She had worked very hard. She had sacrificed a lot for her dream. David's eyes went very wide. 12 years. But you look like you are only 25 years old. I am 29, Sarah said. Wow, you must have started very young, Emma said from across the aisle. Tell us, how did you become a fighter pilot? What is your story? Sarah looked out the small airplane window at the airport workers below moving bags and preparing planes. I went to the Air Force Academy when I was 18 years old. I studied very hard for 4 years. I studied science, math, engineering, and many other subjects. Then after I graduated, I got selected for pilot training. It took 5 years of training before I could fly an F-22 Raptor. I had to pass many tests. I had to fly many training aircraft first. It was not easy. Many people did not believe I could do it. Some people said women were not strong enough to be fighter pilots. Emma leaned forward with great interest. That is so cool. What is it like flying an F-22? I have read that they can fly at twice the speed of sound. 2,000 miles per hour. It is the best feeling in the world, Sarah said honestly and from her heart. When you are up there in the sky, nothing else matters. It is just you and the plane and the sky. All your problems disappear. All your worries go away. The F-22 is an incredible machine. It responds to your thoughts almost. When you move the controls, it does exactly what you want. It is like dancing with a beautiful partner. It is like your body and the plane become one thing. David was still skeptical and did not believe her. But why would you leave that? You must make very good money flying fighter jets. Why are you going home to visit your family? I did not leave my job, Sarah said. I am on vacation right now for 1 week. But I do work at Nellis Air Force Base. I fly combat missions. I train young pilots. It is dangerous work, but it is important work. I do it to protect people. The pilot came over the intercom system. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Flight 847 to Los Angeles. We will be taking off in about 10 minutes. Please put on your seatbelts and turn off your phones. We are expecting clear skies today and a smooth flight. Sarah put on her seatbelt. She watched the safety demonstration that the flight attendants were doing. She had watched it hundreds of times before. When you are a pilot, you pay attention to how other planes are run. You notice everything. You notice the crew. You notice the equipment. You notice the procedures. You study how they do things. The plane started moving slowly. It moved down the runway. Then it moved faster and faster. Sarah felt the wheels leave the ground. The plane went up into the air. Sarah loved this moment. Every single time. She was flying again. No matter if she was a pilot in control or a passenger sitting in a seat, flying always made her happy. 2 hours into the flight, everything seemed to be going well. The sky was clear and beautiful. The weather was good. The pilot announced they would arrive in Los Angeles on time. Sarah had closed her eyes. She was trying to sleep because she needed sleep badly. She was exhausted from months of difficult flying over war zones. Then there was a very loud bang sound. It came from somewhere in the back of the plane. Passengers screamed. A baby started crying very loudly. The plane shook very hard. Sarah's eyes opened immediately. Her training kicked in automatically. She knew something was very, very wrong. She could feel it in her body. She could hear it in the sounds the plane was making. What was that? David shouted, gripping the armrest so hard his knuckles turned white. The plane started to tilt to one side. People were thrown against their seatbelts. Someone in the back shouted, "We are going to crash. We are going to die." The pilot's voice came over the speaker system. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are having some technical problems with the plane. Please remain calm and stay in your seats. We are working on fixing the problem." But Sarah could tell from the pilot's voice that he was very worried. She could hear the fear in his words. She knew that something serious was happening. She listened carefully to the sounds the plane was making. The engines were not running smoothly. There were strange vibrations coming from the wings. The plane was slowly going down. It was losing altitude. It was descending when it should be staying level. Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. She was steady and calm, even though the plane was shaking badly. "Ma'am, you need to sit down right now," a flight attendant named Marcus said. He was moving through the aisle, trying to help nervous and scared passengers. He looked very scared himself. "I am a pilot," Sarah said calmly and clearly. "I need to speak to the captain immediately. This is an emergency situation and I can help." You cannot go to the cockpit, Marcus said. It is not allowed during flight. It is against the law. This is an emergency, Sarah replied firmly. I can help save this plane. Trust me. Sarah walked toward the front of the plane with confidence. She moved as if she had done this 1,000 times before. Emma watched her go with her mouth open in shock. David shook his head and thought she was absolutely crazy. Sarah knocked on the thick cockpit door. Captain, I am a military pilot. I can help you. Please let me in now. There was no answer. The plane shook violently. Sarah knocked again, harder this time. Captain, this is Captain Sarah Mitchell. I fly F-22 Raptors for the United States Air Force. I have combat experience with system failures. Let me help. Open this door now. This is urgent. Inside the cockpit, the pilots were fighting hard to control the plane. Captain James Wilson, who had been flying commercial planes for 30 years, was struggling with the controls. His hands were shaking a little. First Officer Lisa Park, who was in her 10th year of flying commercial planes, looked very scared. Her whole body was shaking. They were losing power in 2 of the 4 engines. The computer systems were giving them wrong information. The hydraulic systems were starting to fail. Everything was going wrong at the same time. It was a complete disaster. Did she say F-22 Raptors? Captain Wilson asked, looking at Lisa with great surprise. I think so, Lisa said quietly. She said her name was Captain Sarah Mitchell. Captain Wilson pressed a button and the cockpit door opened. He saw a young woman with a serious, confident face standing there. She did not look scared at all. She looked like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. She looked like a warrior. Come in, he said. Sarah entered the cockpit and looked at the instrument panel. It was full of red warning lights. Red lights everywhere. Alarms were going off constantly. The plane was shaking and vibrating. But Sarah did not panic or get scared. She had trained for situations like this. She had dealt with emergencies before in combat situations. What is your status? She asked, sitting in the jump seat behind the pilots. We have lost power in engines 1 and 3, Captain Wilson said, fighting hard with the controls. His muscles were straining from the effort. The computer systems are not responding right. They are giving us bad information. We are losing altitude fast. I cannot fix it. I do not know what is wrong. I have never seen this before. Sarah looked at all the instruments very carefully. Her eyes moved very fast. She was reading all the information at once. This was what her training had taught her to do. She could see the problem immediately in her mind. You have a cascade failure, Sarah said calmly and clearly. The computer system is getting confused because the hydraulic pressure is dropping very fast. The engines are probably fine, but the computer thinks they are failing. You need to switch to manual control right now. But the manual system is very hard to use, Lisa said. And the checklist says we should not do that. The checklist says we should trust the computers. The checklist was not written for this exact problem, Sarah said. I have dealt with this in combat situations many times. When you are flying a fighter jet and someone is shooting at you with missiles, you learn very fast what information to trust and what information to ignore. Trust the basic instruments. Do not trust the computers right now. Fly the plane yourself using only the old mechanical instruments. Captain Wilson looked at Sarah for one long moment. He thought about his passengers. He thought about Emma and David and all the other people on the plane. He had nothing to lose. His plane was going down. Then he decided to trust this young female pilot. He did what she said. He switched the engines to manual control. He disconnected the computer systems that were giving wrong information. He used only his hands and the basic instruments to control the plane. Slowly, very slowly, the plane became more stable. The shaking became less violent. The engine started working better. The plane was still losing altitude, but it was going down slowly now. It was not falling fast like before. How did you know that? Lisa asked, looking at Sarah with wonder and gratitude in her eyes. How did you know what to do? Because I have had every single system on an F-22 Raptor fail at the same time while I was flying in combat, Sarah said. When that happens, you learn very fast what information to trust and what information to ignore. The computers can fail. The sensors can fail. The electronic systems can break. But the basic instruments do not fail. They are mechanical. They are simple. They cannot lie. They cannot be wrong. Sarah helped the pilots for the next 30 minutes. She told them how to manage each system one by one. She helped them figure out what was really broken and what was just confused computers making wrong decisions. The plane became easier to control. It was still not perfect, but it was much, much better than before. Chicago Center, this is Flight 847, Captain Wilson said on the radio, his voice shaking a little bit. We have a military pilot assisting us in the cockpit. We need to land immediately. Flight 847, this is Chicago Center, the voice said back. Do you have an emergency? Yes. We have multiple system failures. 2 engines are down or not working right. Hydraulic systems are failing. We have 156 passengers and crew on board. We need the nearest airport with emergency equipment ready. Sarah listened to the radio conversation. She was thinking about all the people on the plane. She was thinking about their families. She was thinking about their lives and their futures. Flight 847, we are sending you to Chicago O'Hare International Airport. You are about 100 miles away. Emergency equipment will be waiting for you. Can you maintain your current altitude? Sarah looked at the instruments very carefully. She studied all the information. Yes, but we need to come down very slowly. No sharp turns. No holding patterns. Just a straight line to the airport. We cannot handle any extra stress on the plane. Captain Wilson told the controller this important information. Roger, Flight 847. You are cleared to go directly to O'Hare. Descend slowly to 10,000 feet. As the plane flew toward Chicago, Captain Wilson looked at Sarah with new respect in his eyes. You really are a fighter pilot, aren't you? Yes, Sarah said simply. What is your call sign? Lisa asked. Storm Rider, Sarah answered. Lisa's face went pale white. She could not believe it. Storm Rider. Oh my God. You are the Storm Rider from the Taiwan mission. You destroyed 3 enemy planes in one day. I read about that. Military pilots talk about your mission in training classes. I did my job, Sarah said simply. She did not like to talk about her combat missions. They were classified. They were secret. The landing was hard but very safe and smooth. The plane came down on the runway at Chicago O'Hare with a big bump. Emergency vehicles followed alongside the plane. Fire trucks, ambulances, police cars. When the plane stopped, the passengers erupted in cheers and clapping and crying. They were alive. They had made it safely to the ground. Sarah stayed in the cockpit while the pilots finished their work and talked to the emergency crews. When they were done, Captain Wilson stood up and shook her hand firmly. Captain Mitchell, you saved our lives today, he said. Thank you. I do not know what we would have done without you. You saved your own lives, Sarah said. You trusted the information I gave you. You flew the plane very well. I just helped. You did the hard work. Sarah walked out into the cabin. The passengers were getting ready to leave the plane. When they saw her walking down the aisle, some of them recognized her from the news that was already spreading about what happened. They knew that she was the person who had helped save the plane and everyone's lives. David Chen was one of the first to approach her. His face was red with embarrassment and shame. "I am so sorry," he said. "I did not believe you when you said you were a fighter pilot. I thought you were making it up. I was so wrong. You saved my life. You saved everyone's life." Sarah smiled kindly at him. "You made assumptions. Most people do. There is no reason you should have believed me. I do not look like what people think a fighter pilot should look like. I am a woman. I am young. I look like a student. But that is okay. You learned something today." Emma was crying happy tears. Her whole body was shaking with emotion and joy. "You saved all of us. You are the most amazing person I have ever met. I want to be just like you. I want to fly fighter jets too." Sarah put her hand on Emma's shoulder gently. "Work hard in your training. Study hard. Believe in yourself. Never let anyone tell you what you cannot do. Many people told me I could not be a fighter pilot. But I did not listen to them. I listened to myself. You can do the same thing." As passengers filed off the aircraft, each one stopped to thank Sarah. Some shook her hand. Others were too emotional to speak. A few wanted to take pictures with her, which she politely declined. An elderly man who had been sitting near the back of the plane approached her. "Ma'am, my grandson is a Navy pilot. He is going to flip when I tell him I flew with the legendary Storm Rider. This is the best day of my life." Sarah smiled warmly. "Tell him to fly safe and always bring his crew home. That is what matters. That is all that matters. Bring everyone home safely." 3 days later, Sarah was back in Iowa visiting her family when her phone rang. It was Colonel Martinez, her old wing commander from the 355th Fighter Squadron. "Sarah, what happened on that United flight reminded everyone why the Air Force needs pilots like you," he said. His voice sounded very serious. "We want you back. We need you back. Your country needs you back." Sarah thought about her vacation. She thought about being just a normal person. She thought about resting and sleeping and forgetting about flying. But she also knew that her work was important. Young pilots needed to learn from her. People needed pilots like her to keep them safe. The world needed her skills. Children needed pilots like her to protect them from bad people. "I need to think about it, sir," Sarah said. "I need some time." That evening, Sarah sat on her mother's porch and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. Her mother came and sat next to her. "Your father called me," her mother said. "He heard about what you did on that airplane. He is very proud of you." "I was just doing my job," Sarah said. "No," her mother said. "You were doing more than your job. You were saving people. You were being brave. That is who you are. You cannot run away from who you are." Sarah's mother was right. Sarah knew she could not run away from her abilities. She could not hide. She had a responsibility to use her skills to help people. The next morning, Sarah called Colonel Martinez back. "Sir, I will come back," she said. "I will come back to the Air Force. But I have some conditions." "What conditions?" the colonel asked. "I want to train new pilots. I want to teach them everything I know. I want to make sure that the next generation of pilots is better than my generation. I want to create a program where young female pilots can learn from other female pilots. I want women to know they can be fighter pilots too. I want to change the culture in the Air Force." Colonel Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That is exactly what we need. That is exactly what the Air Force needs. You come back and we will make it happen." 2 weeks later, Colonel Sarah Mitchell stood on the flight line at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. The morning sun was shining bright. She put on her flight suit. She put on her flight helmet. She walked out to the runway where her F-22 Raptor was waiting for her. The plane was sleek and beautiful and powerful. She climbed into the cockpit. She strapped herself in. She started the engines. She could hear the engines roar to life. This was home. This was where she belonged. This was where she was meant to be. Her heart was beating fast with excitement. A group of young pilots were watching her from the ground. They had read about Storm Rider. They had studied her tactics. They had watched videos of her flying. Now they were going to train under her. Sarah took off into the sky. The plane lifted off the ground and climbed higher and higher. The plane went faster and faster. Soon she was flying at twice the speed of sound. The world below became small. The sky became huge and beautiful. Everything else disappeared. Only the sky and the plane remained. At that moment, she was not Sarah the student anymore. She was not Sarah the daughter anymore. She was Colonel Sarah Mitchell, call sign Storm Rider. She was a pilot. She was a warrior. She was exactly who she was meant to be. She flew higher and higher until she could see the curve of the earth. She could see clouds below her. She could see the sun shining bright. She felt completely free. She felt completely alive. This was what she lived for. This was what made her happy. As she flew, Sarah thought about David Chen and Emma Rodriguez. She thought about Captain Wilson and First Officer Lisa Park. She thought about all the people she had saved on that plane. She thought about the young pilots waiting for her on the ground. Back at Nellis Air Force Base, Sarah started teaching. She taught young pilots how to fly. She taught them how to think fast. She taught them how to make good decisions when things go wrong. She taught them about courage and bravery and responsibility. Emma Rodriguez was one of the first students to come to her training program. Emma had quit her job as a flight attendant and joined the Air Force to become a pilot. She wanted to be like Sarah. She wanted to be Storm Rider. Sarah taught Emma everything she knew. She taught her how to fly fast. She taught her how to handle difficult situations. She taught her how to never give up, no matter how hard things got. "Why are you teaching me?" Emma asked one day. "Because you have potential," Sarah said. "Because you have the dream, because you believed in yourself when others did not believe in you. I see myself in you. I want to help you become the best pilot you can be." 1 year later, the news reported that a young female pilot named Emma Rodriguez had completed her F-22 training. She was now a fighter pilot. She was ready to fly combat missions. She credited her success to Colonel Sarah Mitchell, call sign Storm Rider. Sarah watched the news report with pride in her heart. She had done what she wanted to do. She had helped a young woman become a pilot. She had changed one person's life. But this was just the beginning. Sarah knew there would be many more young pilots coming. Many more women who wanted to be pilots. Many more people who needed training and guidance. Sarah stood on the flight line and looked at the F-22 Raptors lined up in a row. She thought about that day on Flight 847 when she saved 156 people. She thought about how one person can make a difference. She thought about how courage can change everything. And in that moment, watching the young pilots walk toward their planes, Colonel Sarah Mitchell, call sign Storm Rider, smiled. She was home. She was exactly where she needed to be. She was making a difference. She was changing the world, one pilot at a time. Her story was not over. It was just beginning. There were more young pilots to train. There were more lives to save. There were more people who needed her skills and her knowledge. Storm Rider was not just a pilot anymore. She was a teacher. She was a leader. She was a role model for all the young women who wanted to fly. She was proof that anything is possible if you believe in yourself and never give up.